is Don Lemon talking about some of these farmers that happen to be huge MAGA supporters that are now second guessing their decision to support Donald Trump.
Some farmers say without these workers, they have about 2 days that they can run their farms. And then after that, it's over. Oh my God, I love this. Now you're finding out, you dumb idiots. Now you're just figuring this out. You're so stupid and you deserve it. You deserve it because you're so dumb.
All right, I love that. I think it's funny. He's right. Like, wow, maybe I'm rubbing off a little bit on Don Lemon. That sounds like Shapiro. I don't know. But anyway, Don Lemon show, who I love. I love that video. Don Lemon, nice enough to be joining us right now. Don, what happened, man? That was great.
So can I clarify a little bit? By the way, how are you? And I think you are rubbing off on me. And just so you know, I am in Louisiana right now. My sister's in the hospital, so I'm calling you from actually her hospital room. She's getting better. So thank you, everyone.
I'm sorry to hear that. I hope she's okay.
Thank you. She is. So let me clarify. So this all started with the H-1B visa thing. And I said there's a correlation between the H-1B and what's happening with people who are in the farming industry, who are dairy farmers, who are in the service industry, who are in the construction industry. Like all of a sudden, these people are realizing that they now need immigrants. Like Vivek Ramaswamy and the Doge folks are now saying, we need these H-1B visa people. So now they're all figuring it out and they're all upset. So I was talking about the racist people online who were saying all of these disparaging things about Indian Americans. And I don't mean Native Americans. I mean Americans, India, people who come over on airplanes, take advantage of the H-1B visas and go into these high-tech fields. And now they're saying, we need these guys. We can't get rid of them. You know how most people come over, the legal immigrants, on airplanes and they overstay their visas. But yet we focus on the southern border. Why? Because it's the scary brown people. It's not the right kind of brown people that they want. So they say they're going to deport those people. And what I said was, you guys are such idiots. You don't know that if you try to deport these people, then our farming industries won't be able to stay open. The construction industry, the service industry, and you won't, people who keep groceries in the grocery store. It's like, they just don't understand how dumb they are with this MAGA brain voting against their own interests.
No, you're right, Don. They don't understand how the economy works. They don't understand how important these people are in this country. And the MAGA infighting, I don't know if that surprises you at all. The infighting among MAGA Republicans, even getting to a point where Elon Musk, as you know, I know you're not on X anymore, which was probably a smart move. And they're taking away blue check marks. The Laura Loomers of the world are not being able to get monetized.
Oh my gosh.
What do you make
Bannons of it all? Yeah. What do I make of it? Look, the infighting, we told you so. Republicans can't govern. All they can do really in this moment, look, I guess in the old days they could, but it's been for a while. And by the way, I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican, but Republicans have a hard time governing. What they have a good time, an easy time doing is being obstructionists, because that's all they can say is what we're not going to do and what we're going to, the concepts of a plan that they're going to have, or that they're going to somehow repeal and replace Obamacare, but they like the Affordable Care Act. They don't know the difference. They're just really, and look, I'm just tired of like beating around the bush. I'm not in legacy media anymore, so I don't have to worry about what the bosses are going to say and hold my tongue. They're just dumb. They just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And so I'm tired of beating around the bush. And you know what? I have to say a couple salty words, maybe to get your attention. Maybe it's to voice the frustration of the American people who have been trying to tell you you're going to F around and find out. These people are voting against their own interests. They're being co-opted by a cult of personality, and they don't even realize it. Yeah, and so am I shocked? No. I'm surprised that I actually in some way agree with Laura Loomer. I'm sure you are too. Yeah. I never had that on my bingo card that I would agree with Laura Loomer that maybe these guys in Doge are are out for their own money and their bottom line, and they're not thinking about the American people.
I think what it is, I agree. And I think what it is, Don, is that a guy like an Elon Musk, can you imagine if you're an immigrant, you bring your family to this country, you're working for somebody like an Elon Musk, and you know that if you get fired, you and your entire family are going to be deported. You can treat those employees, I hate to use the term slaves, but I guess I will in this aspect of it. If you ask for a raise, or if you say anything that you think might upset your boss, you and your family will be deported. What other word would you describe that? I mean, he wants to take advantage. The Vivek Ramaswamis and the Elon Musk want to take advantage of these workers and not treat them as they deserve to be treated, knowing that they have a strong arm on them. That's what, to me, what this is all about.
Well, I will say that I will warn the people, and I will caution them and encourage them to look at the record of the folks who are in charge, to look at their records on employees organizing, organized labor, on unions, on giving people a voice. I just did a thing today on this young lady who was down in New Orleans during the terror attack, and she got hit by a truck down in the French Quarter. The truck that the guy was driving with the lights off. She heard it. She tried to ran her over. She got up, managed to, then got shot. She had a bullet in her foot, right? And then you've heard the story. Amazon said she couldn't take a leave of absence. Now, just look at the records on these companies and see how they feel about organized labor and about the little guy. And if they actually care about the little guy, if they're trying to raise minimum wages, which is why, many of the folks who supported Donald Trump, many of the MAGA folks who would be in this position, how would they feel if something like that happened and they couldn't even get a leave of absence? She finally got it because of the outrage on social media. They think like, oh, I'm going to own the libs and he's going to deport all these people. Can you imagine if he tried to deport all these people? Do you know what would happen to the economy, Brian?
It would tank.
Do you know what would if you think the pandemic was bad? If you think the supply chain issue during the pandemic was bad, try to deport all these people and see if all of these rich guys in Silicon Valley, see what will happen if you try to get one of their H-1B people who come over and they have very little protections and no leverage. If they say, you got to do this, then you've got to do it. You can't say, I'm going to my union. My union says, no, I don't have to do this in the contract. Like, okay, get your ass on a plane, excuse my French, and go back to where you came from.
Right. And is it interesting that 4 years ago, Donald Trump spoke out against these visas? I'm sure you've seen the clips.
Oh, he said it was awful. He said,
Right.
It was awful. I take advantage of them. We need to get rid of them immediately. They're terrible, terrible, terrible. And then all of a sudden now he says, oh, they're the best thing since sliced bread. I love them.
Yeah. Isn't it? And last question about this viral video you put out, which I thought was great, by the way. Don't you find it interesting that all these people, I mean, you're used to being attacked from the right, sadly, but they don't like the language you're using, calling them dumb. When you think of the language they use to talk about people like us, right? And people like you and the death threats you received when you were at CNN, and yet they're so up in arms and angry because you said the F word and you called them stupid. Right, Don? I mean, it's insane.
Well, I played on my show and on social media, I played their actual dear leader and some of the language he uses to talk about women. He calls Nikki Haley bird brain Nikki Haley. He calls Maxine Waters dumb. He has said disparaging words and maybe even worse about the vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris. He has called me dumb. He's called NBA players sons of bees. He's told people to get the F out of here. He's used the F-bomb. He's used all kinds of language. But when it comes to him, what they say is, we're not electing a pastor-in-chief. We're electing a president. But then you get upset. You have a higher standard for a former cable news anchor and an independent journalist than you have for the person who sits in the highest office of the land. What does that say about you? That actually kind of makes you a hypocrite, and it makes you dumb if you have that.
Yeah, he calls us snowflakes, but I think we know who the real snowflakes are.
It's a MAGA. MAGA is the biggest snowflakes, and they're also the biggest identity political group in modern history.
No question. So, Don, I wanted to ask you this question. I don't know if you saw the video of Deb Fisher's
I know what you're going to tell me. Her husband refusing to shake the vice president's hand.
Now, the first thing that
go on my social media if you're there and see what I said.
Okay, well,
go on ahead.
I have to check that. I didn't see what you said about this, and I should have. But my first reaction when I saw that video was, there is another, and I'm just going to say it, middle-aged, older, crusty Republican white dude who doesn't want to shake the hand of a black woman. And that's a situation where it shouldn't be about him, no matter what you disagree with Kamala Harris on policy or whatever it might be. That's a moment. It's your wife getting sworn in. Don't make it about you. Shake her hand. I would say the same thing if Donald Trump was up there swearing in people that were on the left. Shake his hand. Do it for America. Don't do it. Don't, stop thinking about yourself. Right?
Yeah. I was, there was something similar. I forget the exact thing it was. It was at someone's funeral. I think it was at Barbara Bush's funeral or something like that. And, all of the terrible things that Donald Trump had said about the Bushes over the years, every single Bush. And he walked in and expected to get this, courtesy and respect from everyone there. And they did. They shook his hand. And I said, you know what? I wouldn't if someone talked about whatever, me like that. But in this particular situation where you're being sworn in by the Vice President of the United States, who has not said anything to you personally about you or your family or anything, who has been the most decent person, I believe. This has been the most decent administration besides the Obama administration in a while. You never hear Joe Biden really saying bad things or terrible things. You don't hear Kamala Harris using language, the kind of language that Donald Trump uses. Yeah. And so I put it out there. I said, F you, you piece of shit. You old racist piece of shit, because that's what he is. He's an old, crusty, racist man who doesn't even realize it, can't even show this. Now, this is the sexism that goes on and the entitlement. He can't even show his own wife, who is an elected official, a public servant, enough respect to just seconds shake someone's hand. Imagine the kind of person that this old crusty bastard is. Imagine what he's like at home. Imagine how he treats people. Imagine how he treats women and people of color. If you can do that to a sitting vice president of the United States, what if she had said, I'm not going to swear in your wife? I don't want to swear in your wife, and I don't have to. So, yeah, and look, we're going to deal with a lot of that. And I'm just going to call it for what it is. He's an old, crusty, racist, entitled, privileged white man who doesn't even understand what that means. And he gets all upset because of some rhetoric that, well, not even just the rhetoric of his dear leader, but just because that's what's inside of him.
That's the first thing that entered my mind, Don. And I come from a perspective of somebody who's white. And the first thing that entered my mind was race. And that to me is why he didn't shake her hand. I agree with everything you just said. I wanted to ask.
She was very respectful, and she's like, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
She kind of shook it off and like, okay, that's probably the way we would have reacted. And then deep down inside, we know why he's not shaking your hand. That's the MAGA Republican Party today, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, Don, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about New Orleans, and I know you grew up in Louisiana, and I thought about you when all this took place, and what a horrible tragedy, how horrific. And I hate to bring politics in this because, the first thing I spoke about was the victims and how young they were. So many, and then a man in a wheelchair who was already paralyzed, who was hit, the loss of life, an 18-year-old, people in their 20s, their whole life ahead of them, right? And what do the MAGA Republicans do? Immediately, they start talking about, oh, it's a migrant. Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeting about it. Don Jr. tweeting about it. Donald Trump tweeting about it.
Oh, yeah, it's a border.
Yeah.
And
they want to blame it on
fake
policy.
information. Well, part of it is a fake information that from Fox News, and Fox News had to end up retracting part of their story. But the other part is that they can't help but take advantage in a bad way of a tragedy, which is sad. The first words out of the former and president-elect's mouth should have been, "My heart goes out to the families, and we're going to give them all the resources they need, and to law enforcement and the people who helped out, and to the people who are injured and who lost their lives." That wasn't even the first or second thought. The first thing was to blame it on the Dems and on a lie that something that's not even true. It had nothing to do with the southern border. First of all, the man was an American citizen, and he's a veteran. So you know what that means? This is domestic terrorism. Mm-hmm. This is homegrown terror, which is the #1 terror threat in this country. Now, we do have foreign terrorists. Unfortunately, he was co-opted by a foreign group, according to him. I think he had some issues, obviously. But for that's the first thing that came out of their mouth. Now, to the guy in Las Vegas, where you are,
yep.
They had no idea if it was terrorism or not. He was a white guy. They said nothing about it. I have not, unless I'm mistaken, it took him a while to tweet about it. Haven't heard anything. The guy pledged his loyalty to Donald Trump and to MAGA, and
Yeah.
to he was driving a Tesla,
Right.
and he's like, I want to make a splash, and he's an Army veteran, and this Doge thing reportedly has said that they're going to cut some of the veterans' money or funds.
Right.
So go figure. He hasn't said anything. What does that say to you about the MAGA folks and about Donald Trump? Anytime there's a tragedy that can involve race, where they can be racist, race is going to race.
You're absolutely right. And not only that, but even the guy who committed this horrible terrorist attack in New Orleans, also a registered Republican. They can't blame migrants. And then I don't know if you saw this, Don. I know you're not on X anymore, but Libs of TikTok, which is a despicable Twitter account, X account. Then they started to blame it on black people. And they said, look at all these DEI hires in the FBI in New Orleans. So when the migrant argument wasn't working for them, then they try to blame black people. That doesn't work. They try to blame liberals. They try to blame Democrats. This guy was born in Texas, Don, as you know. He was born in Texas. He served the country. Now we need to find out why he was radicalized, what radicalized him, how did he get to that point? How could we
PTSD. Also PTSD.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And also, I forget, there was a right-wing kind of MAGA streamer or podcaster who was saying that they were, with this HB1 thing, that they were giving preference to non-traditional Americans, and they should be given. What does that mean? That means white people, right? They should be. So, and so when it comes to them, they believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, because they don't think that the brown folks who are, as Vivek Ramaswamy said, smarter than them, not as lazy as them, should get these jobs first. And they said, no. We should be getting these jobs first, even if they're not as smart and as qualified as the brown folks. They believe in diversity, equity, inclusion for themselves, right? But not when it comes to black people. So blaming black people on diversity, equity, and inclusion it's just their way of saying, I am a racist, and I'm just going to make any excuse to be a racist.
Make America white again. I wanted to, speaking of race, if you remember the FBI, I think she's a spokesperson for the FBI who spoke at the press conferences, a black woman, and she had said it wasn't a terrorist attack. And then she made a mistake. And then a couple hours later, she corrected herself, right? She clarified, not a huge deal. And MAGA, they're going all after her for saying this wasn't a terrorist attack, yet it's totally okay for them to say that this was a migrant and this was Joe Biden's open border policy. Mike Johnson the other day, Mike Johnson knows that this wasn't a migrant. He goes on Fox News the other day, still blaming Joe Biden and the open border policies, which, by the way, there is no open border. But what do you make of this? I mean,
Walls and who else? There was another one who did the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah, there's a plethora of Trump. Yeah.
What did I make of that? Look, especially, I'm not sure of the context of the one that she did. Anybody can make a mistake, and if you correct it, especially, and then in the beginning, as I know from covering breaking news for decades, situations always change. You get information that could be wrong in the beginning, and then it changes.
Sure.
So for them to call her out about getting that wrong when they got so much wrong about it is just, it's again, as I said, what does that mean? Race is going to race. That's what I lost my train of thought because I wanted to talk about the hypocrisy of them saying that I was going to say, and if they are criticizing her, have they seen Senator Kennedy and what he sounds like and looks like on the air?
I was just going to ask you that next.
With terrible information.
What do you make of that? At the press conference? Yeah.
I'm here in Louisiana, and people are saying keep those two off of television because they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they look like idiots, and they're making the people of Louisiana look bad.
Did you hear the joke he made during the press? I'm sure you did, at the press conference about a media company, and they happen to be on the right side of the room, and he makes a snarky attack joke about them. Meanwhile, 14 of his constituents are dead, dozens more injured, and he decides to take the mic and kind of pushes the woman off to the side. The black female who is the FBI spokesperson gets in there to get in a zinger. I mean, how despicable. And then you have the governor. I don't know if you saw pictures of the governor, who I think is also despicable, by the way, who is at an expensive steakhouse dinner that day.
My mom was telling me about, my mom's sitting right next to me. You said the governor was getting criticized for taking a picture of thumbs up at a steakhouse.
He's smiling, Don. Your mom is right. And we just put the picture up. He's
they're
smiling.
all pissed off. Louisianans are pissed off, except for the MAGA brain dummies they're all, oh, they make excuses for everything. So you
Right.
don't even, I don't even just call them dumb. I don't even like, I give them no credence anymore because they're co-opted. They need to be deprogrammed. And I think it's going to run its course, especially during this administration. It's going to be F around. They F around and they found out.
Yeah.
They're going to find out. But I mean, come
Yeah.
on, Governor.
Yeah, it's pathetic. Don, I love this. I love this even more calling out aggressive Don Lemon. I have to say, I really am enjoying this
Dark
very
lemon.
much.
Dark lemon.
Dark Lemon. I like
That's
that.
what people are calling me, Dark Lemon. And
I like
hey, I
this.
am brown. I don't mind it.
I'm White Shapiro. I guess that'll be my nickname today.
No, you're gonna be light, dark and light.
Dark
We'll
light.
start. Maybe you should start a podcast called Darkness and Light.
I like that. I think that would work. I think that would work. Well, Don, I always appreciate when you take the time to do this show. Say hi to your mom for me, and I hope your sister's okay. And
My sister's okay. This perks her
yeah.
up because she's usually in the comments on all of my shows and on my social media.
Oh, that's cool.
So to be in here doing it this makes her feel good.
You're
she
a
feels
good
like
brother.
she's back in action. Thank
you're
you.
a good brother and a
Thanks,
good man.
Brian.
Don, good to see you, my friend. Take care. Thank you so
You be
much.
well. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Take care, Don.
Bye-bye.
There you go. That's Don Lemon, everybody. Dark Lemon. I kind of like that. I kind of like that nickname. I'm liking that. Listen, I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for Don Lemon, and I've told him that. I've said that on the air. I think he's a great journalist. I think he's great at what I don't think I know. Don Lemon is great at what he does, and he's very intelligent, and he's very morally grounded, if for lack of a better term. And he's just a good guy.
Let me just remind you that the people in this room who pay taxes, who you're being rude to, Caroline Levitt or Donald Trump or whomever, we pay your salaries. We're the reason that you are here. So have some respect and let us ask questions and don't cut us off. And the same thing for Donald Trump, who says to people, shut up. It's like, no, you don't tell me to shut up. I tell you to shut up. As a matter of fact, I am your boss.
Don, I feel like it's a new low. I mean, they haven't even taken all the bodies out of the water yet. As you know, some of these people, young, 13, 14 years old, just such a horrible tragedy. And Don, it's amazing. They wanted this helicopter pilot to be transgender so badly. You just go on social media the last 24 hours.
Oh my God.
That was
transgender black person, transgender black lesbian would have been with a disability.
Yeah.
They would have seen what we said. Oh my gosh.
Don, I feel like this is a new low. I mean, without even knowing the cause of the crash or the names of the pilots, the color of skin or anything, which has nothing to do with this, by the way, we agree on that. What does it say about where this administration is now and where it's going to go over the course of the next 4 years? You saw Caroline Levitt, she held another press conference today, doubling down. Peter Ducey at Fox News says, should people be afraid of flying commercial airliners right now because of DEI hires? That was actually a serious question, and Caroline doubled down on it. I mean, what do you make of this as a black man living in this country? I mean, it angers the hell out of me. I can't imagine how you feel this.
Well, what angers me is that people don't understand what DEI really is. And I'm sure over the last couple of days, you've been doing your research on it. The biggest recipient of, diversity, equity, and inclusion, those hiring practices are white women. And number two are white male executives. And then you can go down the line for Asian Americans and so on. The people who get the least benefit out of it are African Americans. So it's not something for black people or people who have disabilities or anything like that. It's usually just to make, try to make the workforce equitable, right? So how do I feel about it? It's insulting. I'm tired of being outraged by the things that Donald Trump does and, all of his folks. So I'm going to figure out a way, and I'm figuring out a way that I have to moderate it, because you just can't be outraged by everything. Look, this is just flat out pure racism. And I think that folks who have a platform like you and like me, we have to continue just to call it out. But how does it make me feel? I'm not surprised by this BS, this bullshit that they pulled. I'm not surprised that there were 4 white unqualified men up at the podium yesterday doing what they're doing. I shouldn't say I'm not outraged by it. I'm surprised at just how bold they are about it, and just the outright in your face racism and ignorance. I think MAGA should be embarrassed.
Yeah, I agree with you, but they won't be. They'll all double down on it. And just like a Caroline Levitt, They will back Donald Trump no matter what he says, no matter what he does. And, I thought Jasmine Crockett put out a great tweet yesterday, and she went down the list, Don, of talking about what Donald Trump has done just in the last week and a half with the Aviation Security Advisory Committee and the heads of the Transportation Security Administration and all the firings. And I don't want to sit here and politicize this. I know you don't, but the people who are politicizing it are the ones that got the FAA, right?
Yeah. Well, I started my show yesterday by saying, look, my heart goes out and my condolences to all the victims and their families. Right. But this is what's happening. Before the sun even rose yesterday in the entire country, there were people going on Fox News saying that it was a DEI issue and we had to look into that. And it was awful that, the standards for flying and pilots and all of that have been lowered because of DEI, and it's all just lies. And look, it's after I think the last 2 weeks, honestly, I don't understand how MAGA again is not embarrassed. I don't understand how Caroline Leavitt has a job when she's the reason that they had to put this, the hiring freeze on the hiring freeze back into practice because of something that she said on social media and her comments at the podium. So it's just the gang who couldn't shoot straight.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you how she has a job, Don, because she wears that cross on her neck and she's a blonde white woman and she's willing to do and say anything for Donald Trump. That includes lying. That's what Donald Trump wants. He just wants loyalty and someone, a white blonde chick that can get up there to the podium and say and do whatever he wants her to do. That's how she got the job.
Brian, when you watched it yesterday, there was something that stood out to me. I'm not sure if you noticed it. Did you watch the press conference when they all got up there?
I did.
Not one of them really addressed the media or the American people. They all stood there and said, sir, we're going to do this, sir. We're going to rid the Department of Defense of diversity. Sir, thank you. And it's like, why are you talking to him? I think these people forget, especially Donald Trump and all of these DEI hires that he's appointed. I think they forget that they are actually public servants and they work for the American people. They need someone in that briefing room and someone in there to call them out and say, hey, let me just remind you that the people in this room who pay taxes, who you're being rude to, Caroline Leavitt or Donald Trump or whomever, we pay your salaries. We're the reason that you are here. So have some respect and let us ask questions and don't cut us off. And the same thing for Donald Trump, who says to people, shut up. It's like, no, you don't tell me to shut up. I tell you to shut up. As a matter of fact, I am your boss. And I think they forget that.
You're right, Don. This is about giving information to the American people, but they're turning it into campaign rallies the same way that Donald Trump turned the COVID press conferences into campaign rallies. Supposed to be giving information to the media and to the American people, but instead, these are campaign rallies. Trump has done this. He's done this. He's the king. He promised he would do this. He's going to do this. That you're so right about that. What did you make of the comment when asked yesterday? This was another despicable statement that Trump made when he was asked, are you going to go down to the crash site? And now, why would somebody ask that question? Fair question. You want to meet with first responders. You want to get information from people that are firsthand investigating and trying to get dead bodies out of the water.
Yeah.
And his response is, well, what? Do you want me to swim? Yeah. Can you imagine if George W. Bush said that about 9/11? Are you going to go down to the site of 9/11? And he said, well, what? Do you want me to just trip over rubble? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. And it's idiocy. And I understand what the reporter meant. And anyone who has any couth would have said, yeah, I would love to go down to the command center and down to where they are recovering bodies and speak to people, right? Rather than saying, what do you want me to go swimming? We know the crash site is in the water. And by the way, you're the president of the United States. If you want to get a boat, they can find a boat for you. So it's not really out of the question. Again, Brian, I think it goes back to lack of respect, especially how he treats the media. He thinks that he's the boss and that those people are his employees. It's the other way around, buddy.
Yeah,
you work for us. You should be looking out for us. So let me ask my question. And don't try to insult me, and I won't try to insult you. I think Brian Shapiro energy is rubbed off on me. Don't you think?
When I saw that,
it feels good. And people get pissed, and I'm like, but where's the lie? I'm not lying.
I'd be remiss if I didn't at least ask you a question about Jim Acosta. I know you're a colleague of yours for years. What are your thoughts on Jim Acosta stepping down? Do you feel like it was just one of those situations where they were, in a way, demoting him? By the way, I love Jim Acosta, you know,
It wasn't in
and
a way. They were demoting. I mean,
what are your,
you put
you know,
someone on at midnight, unless you're going to give them a late night talk show, right? And you're going to design a talk show around them to compete with the big boys. I think that I'm very proud of what Jim did. I think that in a world of people who are going down to Mar-a-Lago and kissing the ring, and people who are and news organizations who are getting rid of people who hold Donald Trump to account, I think we should all try to be more like Jim Acosta, which is Jim. He'll tell you he's not doing anything extraordinary. He's just doing what a journalist is supposed to do. And I think that journalists and journalistic organizations have forgotten that. They think that they are, well, not that they think that they are. They have become the sort of embodiment of the corporate structure that surrounds them. And there's supposed to be a wall between the corporate owners and the corporate overlords and the journalists. And I think that we need to somehow get the American people to realize that, and also those corporations as well. And there needs to be some sort of regulation or something that keeps a journalist protected. Otherwise, you're going to end up with state media, state-run media. So I wish Jim the best. I sent a whole bunch of people over to his Substack the other day. He didn't text me back, but just he didn't text me a thank you. But when I see him, I'll have something snarky to say to him. But I'm very proud of him, and I wish him the best.
I'm sure he would appreciate that. I think you and Jim have a lot in common. You have a lot of integrity. You seek the truth. You challenge people on both sides. And, I'm sure Jim will be just fine, just like you're doing great. I'm sure Jim will be just fine. Last question, Don. On a normal day, if yesterday was a normal news day, we would be talking about the confirmation hearings a lot more, right? We'd be talking about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard, right? What does it say that a guy like Kash Patel raises money for people who attacked the same Capitol police officers that were protecting him yesterday, or a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. who doesn't even know how Medicaid works? You want to talk about unqualified, forget about all the conspiracy theories and the crazy things that he says. And then a Tulsi Gabbard who is clearly a Russian asset. What does it say about these three people?
What does it say about them? Well, it shows why they're there. Because Donald Trump wants people to do exactly what he says. And all of these people are tarnished in some way. And so that sort of protects him, because they're not going to buck him. And so it gives him some protection. And they feel that because they are tarnished in some way, that they are beholden to Donald Trump, right? And so they're just going to do what he says. And so it works for both of them. But by the way, when I started my show yesterday, I was telling the producers were like, well, we're supposed to be covering the hearings, but then we have the plane. Which one do you want to cover? I said, they're connected. Mm-hmm. Because the people who are in those Senate rooms and who are being questioned, that's why it is important to pay attention to that, because we're going to have those people are going to be in charge of the biggest institutions and organizations that affect our lives. Mm-hmm. Health and Human Services, the Department of Transportation, which has a huge role in the plane crash, and so on, the Defense Department. And so that is why you're having those hearings, to hold those people to account and to make sure the American people know everything about them, transparency, and if they are qualified for the job. But the sad thing is that we are in such partisan times now that nothing matters. And all of those unqualified people are going to end up in those positions. And so there you go. Now you know the consequences of an election.
Sadly, I agree with you. In closing, Don, I do want to say this. I get messages from people every day that say, man, I'm really liking this new Don Lemon. And I say to myself, I don't think this is a new Don Lemon. It's just a free Don Lemon. This is the way I think. You're a very funny guy and you're honest, but there were things you couldn't really do on CNN that you're able to do now. I find it quite enjoyable. I think it's great. But I talk to these people. I don't think this is a new Don Lemon. It's just a more free Don Lemon. Is that a fair characterization?
That's a fair characterization, because I represented some 42 or 4,500 other people in a global brand, and so I had to be a little bit more careful with my words. But always don't let people fool you, journalists.
It's always in the back of your mind that, am I going to get in trouble? What is the boss going to say? Even if it's just a little bit, am I going to lose my job? Is a shareholder going to get mad and then call up the boss and tell him to get rid of me or pipe down, or I'm going to lose an assignment? That's always in the back of the head. My contract is coming up. It's always there. But for me, I would just forget that I was on television and have conversations, and that's how I end up being an independent journalist. But this is always me. You remember 7 years ago, I opened my show and I said, "Good evening. This is CNN Tonight. I'm Don Lemon. The president of the United States is racist." And here we are 7 years later, Donald Trump is back in office. And guess what? He has been proving me right for the last 7 years. So I intend to take that energy into 2025. It's not a different Don Lemon. It's just a more liberated Don Lemon. It's always been here.
You were right then, and you're certainly right now. Don, you're the best. I always appreciate it when you take time to come on this show. I know how busy you are. I just think you're the best, man. Just keep up the great work.
I think Brian Shapiro, that Brian Shapiro energy is rubbed off on me. Don't you think?
When I saw that,
it feels good. And people get pissed, and I'm like, but where's the lie? I'm not lying.
I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw that first video you did when you went viral, this was like maybe a month ago. The first thing I said is, geez, I wonder if I'm rubbing off on him just a little bit.
I don't know if it's a bad or good influence. It's like the little devil on your shoulder. But actually, it was, it's just fun because I'm laughing at, sometimes you just have to laugh at the ridiculousness of these MAGA brain people who don't think for themselves and who don't even realize now with this whole DEI thing and the freezing of federal funds that they're going to be the ones who are affected the most. It's like, oh my gosh, you guys, it's idiotic.
It is. I'm just waiting for you to use the term MAGA buffoon. That'll be next. Okay. You're allowed to use that, Don. You're a MAGA buffoon. I'm waiting for that. And then I'll be the first one to text you.
I was really, did you see Senator? I know you have to go. Senator, is it Murphy yesterday, who actually said bullshit? And I was like, finally, it's about
quickly before we go, it's interesting you say, because I had Jasmine Crockett on the show last week, and oh man, she fights fire with fire. I just love Jasmine. I just think she's the best, and she could run for president one day. I just think she's got a bright future. And I told her, and she agreed with me, we need more people like her. Yeah. We need more people like her that can fight fire with fire. Go after Marjorie Taylor Greene when she insults your appearance. Go after Nancy Mace when she makes idiotic comments about transgenders. We need more people like Jasmine Crockett. I'm sorry, Nancy Pelosi. I'm sorry, Chuck Schumer. Step out of the way. Let's get younger, brighter, and more energetic people that are willing to fight fire with fire. I just think she's a perfect example of that.
In leadership positions.
Yes. Amen, brother. Yeah. Don, I love you, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on, and look forward to talking to you again soon, my friend. Have a good one, okay?
Buffoon, okay?
I love it. I love it. Don Lemon 2.0. Don, you're the best. Be safe out there in LA. I appreciate you. There you go. Don Lemon, everybody. Always has been one of my favorites for a lot of different reasons. First of all, he's a good dude. He's just a nice guy. He's got empathy. He's caring about other people. He's extremely intelligent. He's on the right side of history. He cares about people. And he's really good at what he does. And I watch him on YouTube religiously. He does a great show. Usually when I'm off the air at 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, he's on the air and he starts his show. There have been a few times where I've tried to run out to do his show. But please check out Don on YouTube and on social media. He does such a great job. He's such a good dude. And he's also very funny, by the way. Very funny and very entertaining. And I just love Don to death. He's the best. We got to get him in studio one of these days if he ever comes out here to Las Vegas.